got flies all over you, man. You got flies all over your leg, man. Get up. Come on.
The roads of America reveal a truth many of us never imagined witnessing within our own lifetime. More people than ever now live without shelter, not only in major cities, but in quiet towns, like those many of us were raised in ourselves today. By 2024, over 790,000 Americans were homeless, a figure that continues rising steadily. In this film, we examine what fuels this crisis, how addiction has intensified the struggle, and what could come next as we move closer to the end of 2025 ahead. The question remains, can we reverse the momentum before time runs out? Present reality of homelessness across America. The figures are alarming. In January 2024, the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development reported that 780 Americans were homeless on any given night, a total reflecting an 18% rise from the prior year's count of 653,100. This is more than a number. It represents a human crisis unfolding openly before us. For many who have observed America change across decades, this surge feels like a sharp break from earlier times when homelessness was less visible, less widespread. Today, however, it stands as a reality we can no longer overlook. Who makes up the homeless in America? They are far from a single uniform group. Veterans who served the nation with distinction remain among the most at risk, even as their numbers decline slightly, falling 8% from 35,574 in 2023 to 32,882 in 2024. Families with children face growing hardship with homelessness in this group, rising 39% and more than 150,000 children experiencing homelessness on any given night. People of color, especially Black Americans, are affected at disproportionate rates, accounting for 32% of the homeless population, while representing only 12% of the U.S. population. This imbalance points to deeper structural problems that will be explored later. The crisis is not limited to any single area. From Los Angeles, where more than 71,000 people are homeless, to New York, which recorded a 53.1% rise in homelessness in 2024, the issue spans the nation. States, such as Massachusetts and Hawaii, reported even sharper increases at 53.4% and 87% respectively. Smaller communities are also affected as economic and social pressures ripple well beyond major cities. For those of us who have lived through many decades of change, these numbers prompt a difficult question. What has changed in our society to make homelessness in America an expanding concern? The forces fueling the crisis. To grasp why homelessness in America has reached historic highs, we need to look closely at the pressures pushing people to the brink. A web of connected factors, economic, social, and policy-driven, are working together, each reinforcing the next, in a cycle that is difficult to escape. Let's examine these drivers with an honest look at how they affect everyday lives. To begin with, housing costs have become an overwhelming weight for millions of people. In recent years, rents have climbed by roughly 20%, a rise that has far exceeded wage growth for most Americans.
The problem is that the shelters are full, they're compacted in, There's no subsidized affordable housing, and so there's no place for them to really go. Some of them are sitting in there with alcohol, with Social Security and food stamps.
For households already living paycheck to paycheck, this often means spending more than 30% of income on rent, leaving little room for basic needs. Many of us recall a time when steady work could reliably provide a place to live, but today, that sense of security feels distant for far too many. Inflation has made matters worse, increasing prices on everything from food to fuel. When budgets are already tight, just one surprise expense, a medical emergency, a vehicle repair, can push a family into homelessness. At the same time, addiction has become a powerful and destructive force within this crisis. Substance abuse, especially involving opioids and methamphetamine, has swept through communities, leaving many unable to keep jobs, housing, or stability. In states like California, more than 30% of the homeless population report struggles with substance use, highlighting the strong link between addiction and homelessness. For some individuals, addiction starts with a legitimate prescription for pain, then slowly turns into dependence that takes everything away. Others turn to drugs or alcohol as a way to cope with poverty, trauma, or despair, reinforcing a brutal cycle. This is not simply an individual shortcoming. It reflects a broader societal failure, as access to effective treatment remains out of reach for many who need it most.
Wow, 14 years. And in my situation, it was all due to substance abuse. I just like to get drunk a lot every day, and then before you know it, the lifestyle catches up and I'm one of the people on Skid Row or under a bridge.
Immigration has also placed added strain on already overburdened systems. In cities such as New York and Chicago, large numbers of asylum seekers have overwhelmed shelter networks, forcing local governments to improvise solutions. While many newcomers are escaping severe hardship, their arrival has stretched limited resources, complicating efforts to assist both migrants and long-term residents facing housing insecurity. This situation has fueled intense debate. Yet the underlying truth remains: without sufficient infrastructure, the system begins to crack. Lastly, the expiration of pandemic-era protections has exposed many people to renewed risk. During the COVID-19 period, policies like eviction moratoriums and emergency rental aid helped keep countless families housed. Once these supports ended, many lost their safety net, contributing to a rapid rise in homelessness. For those who have watched public policy shift over decades, this serves as a reminder that short-term measures cannot solve a crisis of this scale. How can anyone stay afloat when living costs keep climbing and support systems continue to weaken? What lies ahead for homelessness in America by 2025? As we look toward the close of 2025, the path of homelessness in America will largely be shaped by how effectively these underlying issues are confronted. Current patterns suggest several possible directions, ranging from deeply concerning to cautiously optimistic. Each outcome depends on economic trends, policy choices, and unexpected developments that could alter the situation. In a worst-case outcome, the number of people without housing could rise to between $850,000 and $900,000 by the end of 2025, representing a 10 to 15% increase from 2024. If housing prices keep climbing, wages stay flat, and addiction treatment fails to grow, more Americans will lose stable housing. The long-standing shortage of affordable homes built up over decades shows little sign of easing without major intervention. In 2023, the National Low-Income Housing Coalition reported that no U.S. state offered enough affordable housing for low-income renters. Without a substantial boost in construction or rental subsidies, this shortage will expand, forcing more families, veterans, and individuals onto the streets. Immigration policy under the new administration taking office in January 2025 may also prove influential. Tighter border enforcement could reduce pressure on urban shelter systems, especially in states like New York and Massachusetts, where migrant arrivals have contributed to rising homelessness. Yet, if these policies do not address the real needs of both migrants and long-term residents, tensions may increase without resolving the core problem. At the same time, addiction remains a critical factor driving homelessness. Without greater investment in rehabilitation and mental health care, more people may remain trapped in the overlapping crises of substance use and homelessness. Still, there is room for cautious optimism if meaningful action is taken. The Department of Housing and Urban Development has demonstrated progress in lowering veteran homelessness, and expanding similar initiatives could help stabilize other at-risk populations. If federal and state governments significantly increase investment in affordable housing building on HUD's 2023 support for more than 424,000 households, homelessness could stabilize between 750,000 and 800,000 people. There are also early signs of relief as rent prices in some regions began to fall in 2024. If that trend continues, it may reduce pressure on low-income households and prevent additional people from becoming homeless. Unpredictable events, however, could quickly change the outlook. Natural disasters such as California wildfires or Gulf Coast hurricanes have already displaced thousands, adding to homelessness in America. Another economic downturn or public health emergency could stretch resources, even further limiting communities' ability to respond. For those who have lived through past recessions and national crises, one lesson stands out: preparation matters. What actions can leaders take now to stop this crisis from deepening by 2025? How homelessness shapes the communities we live in. The expanding crisis of homelessness in America is far more than a statistic. It is a force altering the fabric of the communities we value. For those of us who have spent years building families and neighborhoods, the presence of tents and encampments is a stark reminder of how fragile stability can be. This issue reaches into every part of daily life, from public safety to the future we imagine for our children and grandchildren, testing the principles we hold closest. Homelessness has a direct effect on neighborhood safety and unity. In cities such as Los Angeles and Seattle, where encampments have become more common, worries about crime and public health frequently surface. Although most people experiencing homelessness are not criminals, the hardship of surviving on the streets can create tensions that affect entire communities. Many of us have seen increased strain on local services, law enforcement, sanitation, and emergency response, leaving neighborhoods feeling less secure. This sense of declining safety weighs heavily on those who spent decades working to create stable, welcoming places to live. The consequences for the next generation are just as alarming. In 2024, more than 150,000 children experienced homelessness, facing interrupted education, health problems, and emotional trauma that can follow them for years. For anyone who has raised children or watched grandchildren grow, it is painful to imagine young lives without a consistent place to call home. At the same time, an increasingly unreachable housing market means even our own families struggle to afford homes, continuing a cycle of financial stress that threatens opportunities once taken for granted. How can a hopeful future be built when so many children begin life at such a disadvantage? Veterans, a group many of us deeply respect, remain especially at risk. Even with a modest decline, more than 32,000 veterans were homeless in 2024, often dealing with addiction or mental health challenges connected to their service. Consider John, an 80-year-old Vietnam veteran whose life fell apart after a prescription for pain medication led to opioid dependence and the loss of his home. His experience resonates strongly, particularly with those who served or know someone who did, reminding us that those who gave so much deserve far more than a life on the streets. In the end, this crisis forces us to reflect on America's sense of itself. We often celebrate opportunity and perseverance, yet the growing reality of homelessness in America tells a more troubling story. It compels us to ask a hard question. What kind of country do we want to pass on? One where stability is within reach for all, or one where the most vulnerable are left behind? The answer depends on our willingness to act so that our communities remain places of dignity, hope, and opportunity for everyone. How can we confront homelessness in America together? As homelessness in America reaches record levels, an urgent question comes into focus. How can we move quickly enough to slow or stop this crisis by the close of 2025? The answer requires a strong mix of shared responsibility, meaningful policy change, and genuine human compassion. For those of us who have watched this country move through decades of progress and setbacks, we understand that real change is possible when leaders and communities come together with purpose. To move forward, we must directly address the root drivers, rising housing costs, addiction, structural inequality, and weakened safety nets, while rebuilding a collective sense of hope and stability. At the foundation, expanding affordable housing must come first. The National Low-Income Housing Coalition has made one reality unmistakably clear: no state in the nation has enough affordable housing for low-income renters. In 2023, the Department of Housing and Urban Development helped more than 424,000 households move out of homelessness, marking real progress. Expanding these initiatives through stronger federal and state investment in subsidized housing and renter protections could keep thousands from losing their homes. Programs centered on permanent supportive housing, which combine affordable rent with social services, have worked well for veterans and can be adapted for other populations. If homelessness is to decline by 2025, increasing affordable housing supply and shielding renters from runaway costs must remain central priorities. Just as critical is confronting the grip of addiction, which keeps many people locked in homelessness. In states such as California, more than 30% of the homeless population struggles with substance use, often involving opioids or methamphetamine. Widening access to treatment options, including programs supported by the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration, SAMHSA, is essential. These services must be integrated with mental health care, since many turn to substances to manage trauma or untreated illness. Those of us who have seen loved ones battle addiction know how vital timely, compassionate treatment can be. By funding rehabilitation facilities and community-based recovery programs, we give people a real chance to regain stability and rebuild their lives. Policy reform at both local and national levels also plays a decisive role. When pandemic-era protections like eviction moratoriums ended, many households were left exposed. Restoring targeted support, including emergency rental assistance or income relief for low-wage workers, could stop families from slipping into homelessness. Addressing deeper inequities is equally important. Black Americans remain overrepresented among the homeless population due to long-standing barriers tied to discrimination in housing and employment. Policies that advance fairness, such as stronger fair housing enforcement and expanded job training, can begin to narrow this divide. Managing immigration pressures also demands balance. While tighter border enforcement may ease strain on shelters, sustained humanitarian support for both migrants and long-term residents is necessary to prevent further marginalization. At the personal level, each of us can contribute. Volunteering at shelters, donating to groups like the National Coalition for the Homeless, or speaking up for policy change within our communities all matter. For those connected to military service, supporting efforts through the Department of Veterans Affairs helps ensure veterans are not left without shelter. Even modest actions, checking on a neighbor in crisis or sharing information about addiction services, can create meaningful change. As a society, we must ask ourselves, are we prepared to stand up for those most in need? By aligning individual effort with systemic reform, we can begin to turn the tide on homelessness in America. A personal perspective. As someone who has spent years tracking the heartbeat of this country, I see the growth of homelessness as both devastating and a clear call to act. Growing up in an America where opportunity felt within reach for many, it is shocking to witness many now fighting to survive. The sight of tents along city streets or veterans like John who lost everything through addiction reminds me how fragile stability truly is today. I've watched friends and neighbors confront their struggles with rising costs or personal setbacks, and it is clear that homelessness is not a distant issue. It touches all of us directly. What strikes me most is the resilience of those affected. Despite severe hardship, many continue pushing toward better lives, whether by seeking treatment or rebuilding slowly step by step forward. This resilience convinces me change can happen, but only when we respond with urgency, empathy, and real compassion together. For those of us who have lived through decades of gains and trials, we carry a responsibility to push for solutions, whether supporting affordable housing, demanding addiction treatment, or simply reaching out with care in our communities today. The America we leave behind must be one where no one is left on the streets. Conclusion: a test of our values. The emergency of homelessness across America now challenges the core values we claim to uphold nationally. By the close of 2025, we may witness almost 900,000 people lacking housing if present trends continue, fueled by higher cost addiction and systemic breakdowns. Still, through decisive policy, expanded care programs, and community engagement, we can choose another direction. One where fewer families, veterans, and children endure the streets today. Let us pledge to create an America where everyone has a place to call home. Share your reflections below, and let us keep conversation alive.